Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us for another episode of Hudson County Review Live. I am your host, the only man where what you see is what you get and what you don't is better yet, John R. Heinis, and today I'm joined with my esteemed colleague and friend, Marc Bussanich. Marc, even though we're in the dog days of summer, still a pretty eventful week in Hudson County as usual, if I say so myself.
Oh, no doubt, John, no doubt. I mean, you were at the city council in Hoboken on Wednesday night. You talked about one story that you published was about a possible marijuana dispensary, or at least someone, an owner, business owner, talking to the Hoboken City Council about it. But then, of course, you followed up with the ongoing dispute between Councilman Michael DeFusco and Mayor Ravi Bala. What happened there?
Well, yeah, so just on your first point about the marijuana dispensary, this is a New York-based, I guess, business organization. It's called Etain Health, and, obviously, like you said, it's a dispensary. They have four, I believe it's at least four locations in New York, might even be more than that.
Wow.
And, they were saying why, they were just staking their claim, why they wanted to come to Hoboken. I mean, the council members that spoke, which was, Mike DeFusco, Peter Cunningham, Mike Russo, they all seemed to be pretty much optimistic, I would say, at a minimum. I mean, they all seemed like this was something that could be a good thing for the Mile Square City. I mean, we're still a long ways off, as you know.
Sure.
Marijuana's still illegal here in NJ, but that seems like it's going to be a thing of the past relatively soon. So it'll be interesting what they do on the zoning and planning level and how they will adapt.
Sure.
And, let's see what they can do in terms of ratables, helping the taxpayers, and, of course, the business owners, too. So that's going to be something to certainly keep an eye on.
That's
Hoboken
really-
and beyond.
Right, of course.
Now, to your second point regarding Councilman DeFusco and Mayor Bala, I mean, certainly there's no love lost there, and, other members of the council are with DeFusco and, basically hip-checking Mayor Bala every step of the way. And in this particular instance, we were talking about a legal contract that dates all the way back to 2010, where an ethics complaint was filed by someone that I refer to as a political gadfly. This gentleman, Perry Bellafiore, has always been at odds with Dawn Zimmer, Mayor Bala, and everyone else on that side. Some people call them the Reform Group in Hoboken. But the point is, they filed an ethics complaint saying that Bala, all the way back in 2010, shared a lease with this guy, Paul Condon, I believe his name is, and yet he voted to approve a legal services contract, and they felt that that was Perry felt that that was a conflict of interest.
Right.
And, this ethics complaint, in typical New Jersey fashion, 8 years later, we're still going through the motions. We still don't have a conclusion.
Sure.
It's been thrown out twice.
Right.
The decision just came down in November in the outgoing days of Chris Christie. And, it's under appeal now. And the real point of the whole resolution was to terminate that legal contract, saying that they felt that the mayor was not completely forthcoming about the shared office space, and therefore the city should not have to cover the costs any longer. And that bill was approximately $10,000, give or take a few bucks. I'm not exactly sure about the cents, but it was about $10,000, and it was terminated. And this is just going to be tit for tat until further notice. I expect this to continue on and on and on for at least a couple more years.
Sure, sure.
I mean, obviously, I was by myself at the meeting, but just when you were absorbing it all in, I mean, what was your take on this?
It was. I was obviously surprised by, by the amount of, the strong opposition that is from Councilman Michael DeFusco. He's been very upset about this whole matter, saying that even though this happened 8 years ago, I guess he's using it as another opportunity to go after Mayor Bala. One thing that I guess strikes me about, Mayor Bala has only been in office, less than a year already, John?
Yeah, not long, like
and
7 months or so.
Yeah, and he's a member of the Sikh community that is, obviously a minority population in New Jersey. Are you surprised that he's getting this much heat as being Hoboken's first Sikh mayor? Are you surprised that he's getting all this opposition, not just from one council member, but from multiple council members?
Well, I can't say that I thought it would be this strong of a voice against him, but I can't say I'm totally surprised either. I mean, going in, as you know now, if you didn't know before, the Hoboken mayor runs with 3 at-large candidates, and even though the mayor won 2 of those 3 seats, that still leaves 7 more up for grabs. And, given that it was such a competitive race with all those people running, including Councilwoman Giattino, including
Sure.
Councilman DeFusco, the battle lines were kind of drawn. Some people thought perhaps afterwards, at least maybe the Giattino faction would be able to come to terms with Bala. Obviously, that didn't happen, and it doesn't look like it ever will as of today. So, Yeah, I mean, it's certainly ugly out there, and
Yeah.
every council meeting, again, in the dog days of summer, we're talking about a meeting that went past 11:30 again. So this has become the norm, and I don't see it changing. And you know,
Well, the council's obviously very upset about that. The mayor Bala has this, what Michael DeFusco said in your Facebook Hudson County Review Live last Friday, that he has this no-show job that's paying him $60,000 an hour, and also supposedly getting any commissions for a business that he is able to direct towards this law firm based out of Morristown. They're very upset about that.
yeah, I mean, the opposition council members certainly have been vocal about that, and I don't see that changing. I mean, like you just said, Councilman DeFusco has referred to it as a no-show job. Some people that support the mayor obviously don't see it that way. I mean, of council's a position pretty much every big law firm has. I mean, it's a ceremonial title, some call it. I mean, so, those of council positions typically don't come with an office and typical 9 to 5 hours. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not exactly sure what the expectations are
Right.
across the board, but, of council positions are quite common at these large law firms, so, it's interesting to see just to see where this goes. I mean, I don't see him leaving that job anytime soon, nor do I see the council letting up anytime soon. So, that's another one where we're just going to see a lot of face punching, and I don't see anyone going down anytime soon.
Mike, John, rather, speaking about that interview that you had with Mike DeFusco last week, what was your impression during that interview with him during the Hudson County Review Live? What did you take away from that interview with him?
Well, it seemed like he's interested in helping out the constituents in the first ward, which you would expect to hear. And again, I mean, he's interested in hip checking, chin checking, whatever you want to call it, Mayor Bala, whatever the situation is deemed fit. And look, I don't. I'm sure he's already looking ahead to 2021 in the sense of what can I do in this upcoming council race in 2019 to raise my political capital and to remain a viable contender for that seat. There's always rumors about what Mayor Bala is going to do next. Like you said, we're well under a year into his term, and there's
Right.
already talk
Right.
of assembly, talk of Congress, talk of Senate. I don't know what the next step is. I don't know if he even knows yet because it's so early. But
Sure.
everybody's playing that chess match, trying to figure out where they line up. And the Mile Square City politics is, as you know, some of the most intense around here. So it's certainly going to be a fun show to watch. I mean, they haven't really let us down there in a while.
Well, we did a lot of reporting, obviously, this past week, Jersey City, Hoboken, but I was in Sea Caucus. We got a little bit out to a little bit of West Hudson territory with the ongoing story about how, we believe that many of our viewers know about it by now, the impending firing of Dr.Berg, the former principal of Sea Caucus High School. At the June meeting, it was announced that he was going to be transferred to Clarendon Elementary School, but then it was revealed at the Board of Education meeting last week that tenure charges are not going to be brought against him. I mean, that seemed kind of remarkable, especially with a Board of Education member admitting during the hearing that the board knew about the impending tenure charges in June, but couldn't announce it publicly until July.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for me personally, you've been getting to have all the fun at Secaucus over there these past couple months. But,
Yeah.
clearly this has been a big story. And like you said, typically sleepy town of Secaucus. But, this is something that people are watching eagerly. Obviously, there's a camp that believes Dr. Berg did nothing wrong and he should have retained his position. Obviously, we're way past that point.
Sure.
Whether or not he remains at one of those elementary schools remains to be seen. But clearly the board is not unanimous on this. As you had that one-on-one interview, and
That's right.
at least one trustee was pretty adamant that this was bad for the morale of the board at best.
Yes.
So it's going to be interesting to see what goes forward. I mean, to my knowledge, Dr. Berg hasn't spoken out on his position of what happened from start to finish, and this is a pending matter, as you obviously know and as our viewers know. But it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this thing gets resolved.
Yeah, because apparently he's still, that $5 million lawsuit that he's bringing against the district is still on the table. And, I did interview, as you mentioned, one of the Board of Education trustees, Louis Gielli, and who said that, he thinks that this has been very hurtful for the district, that all this press all this attention is making him concerned that, well, maybe potential educators who are seeing all this negativity, as he said, coming out of the district may affect them in their decision making about whether or not they want to work within the district, because his concern is that, well, if Dr. Berg can get fired about something so seems a little bit ambiguous, as at least pertaining to the time, the way it's been reported from the time when he and Superintendent Jennifer Montesano agreed to this 5-day suspension, to her then suddenly the next day saying he has to be removed from his position. So that's his concern, that people think that, well, if that decision can be made so flippantly, that if it could happen to him, it could happen to them as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, we don't know all the facts. I mean, we haven't heard from Dr. Berg. I mean, like you said, that lawsuit seems to be pending, or sorry, on its way, I should say. The tort claim's been filed. To my knowledge, that has not been brought to a superior court lawsuit just yet, but it seems inevitable, like you said. And it's just a really interesting situation where, the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle, as it usually does. But we're gonna have to see. I mean, this is probably something that could stretch all the way into 2019. If I was a betting man, I don't think they're going to. I don't think they're going to resolve this anytime soon.
I of course I did try to, at that Board of Education meeting last Wednesday, I did approach Ms. Montesano and asked her, hey, our audience, they want to hear her side of the story, because obviously she's been getting a lot of criticism from people the public that is, who have been attending the Board of Education meetings. They've been angry with her, frustrated with her, even a couple, Louis Gielli among them, saying that, well, she's only got 6 months in the district, and therefore maybe making this kind of decision was done too hastily. So we tried to get her to talk on camera. She refused. Unfortunately, she said that she couldn't do so, and we followed up with her to ask, well, why she couldn't be interviewed. She said her answer was that she wasn't ethically allowed to do so, which kind of left me wondering if that was a good enough reason, because again, she had an opportunity to tell her side of the story.
Yeah, I mean, look, like you just said, with that kind of a hefty lawsuit hanging over the head of the district, I can understand why she would want to err on the side of caution. I mean, it's difficult to get any of these superintendents on the record about anything that's, ongoing, unfortunately. So, it's obviously a disappointment from your perspective and my perspective, and probably the viewers' perspectives as well, because we really like to hear what she saw going on from start to finish. But it would be tough for me personally to falter, just because this is such a contentious issue that looks like, again, it's going to be a long haul, not a short haul. So, hopefully sooner than later, but all we can do is just, eagerly watch with anticipation and hope the next meeting doesn't disappoint again.
Interesting. Sure enough, John.
Now, speaking of the boards of education, Mark, across the board, the filing deadline was on Monday at 4 p.m. with the Hudson County Clerk's office.
Right.
And one that we have in Bayonne looks like it's going to be a real melee this year. I mean, Bayonne, as you know, with the past election, the mayoral race, that is, we had some fun there. But this, only 4 seats up for grabs, 20 candidates.
20 candidates running for 4 seats?
Yeah, it's...
oh my gosh.
It's
so a lot of newcomers?
A lot of newcomers. I think, I don't have the list in front of me, obviously, as you know, but I would say there's about a handful of people that have run before, whether it's 1, 2, John Cupo, who you obviously know, actually running for a 4th time.
Mr. Cupo, perennial, as I think you mentioned in your article, perennial candidate, that is.
Yeah, he's adamant about getting his crack at the board. I mean, obviously it hasn't worked out in his favor up to this point. We'll see. But one thing that caught my attention, and perhaps it caught yours as well, was with all these candidates, it looks like we have at least 3 different slates. Trustee Michael Alonso's running a slate that includes his wife. There's another slate of the incumbents, and then there's a 3rd slate that I don't believe has been attributed to any one particular person or group, but the rumor mill, which, take it with a grain of salt, says that will be the ticket backed by Mayor Davis and Assemblyman Travelati. So I'm sure that'll all shake out in the next month or so, but it looks like we got a real barn burner on our hands there.
Oh, that's really interesting. And so, based on what you've seen in their platforms, I mean, are they very wide apart as far as what they want to see, the kind of changes they want to see made in the Board of Education, or do they just feel that the direction of the board right now is not really most beneficial to the students?
Well, it's a little early for me to answer that, Mark, just because, like I said, we just got the names on Monday. The new formatting of the Board of Ed races is that, you get bracketed together if you're running as a team or slate. So, Trustee Alonso's slogan was Make Bayonne Great Again, his ticket. So
Oh, really?
that was
Where
a
did you get
so, he ran a similar
Oh, interesting.
campaign last year, and obviously he pulled off the upset. He's been on the board for a few months now, and I'm not really sure what to expect there, other than the
Yeah,
unexpected.
yeah. Wow.
It's gonna be a tough sell, I think, for at least a few of the incumbents,
Yeah, yeah,
because
sure.
there was the budget deficit, there was the layoffs last year, and that's still lingering with people. And some people still not satisfied with the state funding, even though there was a slight increase. So after the Senate president and the rest of the legislature came to an agreement. So there's a lot of stuff there that people in the Peninsula City want to see
Sure.
improved and want to see change in that district. So I
Yeah.
think it's gonna be a must watch.
I mean, with 20 people running, you have then, the efforts that each individual candidate will have to make to be able to stand out among the rest of the pack. I mean, is there, would you say any one candidate among those 20 that might be best positioned right now to be leading the pack?
Yeah, again, I hate to give a political answer, but I think it's a
Yeah.
little early.
Sure.
Just with a group that big,
Yeah.
the one thing I will say is the 1 year term. There's 4 seats, like we said. There's one year term and 3 3-year terms. The 1 year term, there's only 5 candidates, so I think that one is a little more obvious, for lack of a better term. I think that's probably a situation where Trustee Mikel Lawandi, who interestingly, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, he lost in November, but then there was a vacant board seat after Mary Jane Desmond resigned at the end of May, and he ended up getting appointed in June to some criticism because people felt that the will of the people was not being heard.
Sure.
And,
Yes.
we could certainly understand that. The other perspective was that he's somebody that worked well with the board and everyone felt comfortable having him back. So he's back. But
Right.
anyway, the point is the 1 year term is going to be Lawandi and 4 others. And I think someone that has a pretty good shot of giving him a run is Michael Mulcahy, who was a campaign treasurer for Jason O'Donnell and I believe also a lifelong Bayonne resident.
Right.
So I think those are the two to watch in the 1 year. So I'll say that for now.
Yeah.
Again, we're so early. Nobody's
Of
really
course, of
established a platform like you asked me about. I don't even think they have group Facebook pages up yet, or certainly no mailers or anything
Yeah.
like that. But that's like I said earlier. I think this will be a must watch.
Well, John, with 20 candidates, right? It sounds like our news organization may turn into a 24/7 news cycle with that many candidates running for a couple seats.
It's certainly going to make our lives a little challenging, but it usually is, so that's okay.
Yeah.
In Jersey City, you have 10, and in West New York you have 9, and two very different dynamics there, as it usually is the case in South Hudson and North Hudson. In Jersey City you have 10 people running, but it looks like we're only going to have one slate, the teachers union slate, which isn't official yet, but
Right, right.
the two incumbents as well as one newcomer, Joan Terrell Page, are all running under the Education Matters banner, which in the past has always been the name of the JCEA ticket. They're saying that they haven't made that decision yet,
Sure.
but I would bet you a pretty penny that the incumbents will be on it at the end of the day.
Right.
And nobody else that was bracketed looked like they would have 3. So that's going to be interesting. One slate and 7 independents.
Interesting.
That's a dynamic you don't usually see, especially in Jersey City. You usually get at least 2 factions clashing head to head. It looks
Sure.
like we're not going to have that this year. Granted, we've been surprised before. We could be surprised again. And to my earlier point, though, in West New York, you actually have 9 candidates, but you have 3 separate slates. They're all
Interesting.
running on a team. You have no independents.
Interesting.
So you have Albio Sirius slate, of course, the congressman in District 8, and you have his wife running.
Which you exclusively reported.
That's right, thanks. And then you also have Trustee Jonathan Castaneda, who used to work in not only Congressman Siri's office, but also with Chief of Staff to Mayor Roque not long ago. And finally, you have Joe Rodriguez, who is the husband of Freeholder Karen Dad Rodriguez. So, those are 3 pretty established names in the West New York and North Hudson community.
Sure.
I think most people would call them the front runners as of today. Again, extremely early, but as of today, I think most people would consider them at the head of the pack. But there's
Right.
also a ticket backed by activist Jose Toby Alcantara. Three lifelong West New Yorkers, two millennials on there. I think one is just like 20 years old. I believe the other about
Interesting.
22, and a slightly older gentleman, Richie Acosta, another lifelong West New Yorker. And then there's a third ticket with trustee Lorena Portillo and two newcomers, including a priest. So you really have a very diverse group running there.
For sure.
The former ticket, a lot of people believe backed by Mayor Roque, but when I spoke to him, he said that's not the case. He hasn't put his weight behind any team yet. Not everybody was satisfied with that response, but
Right.
that's what he told me. And we'll see. That looks like it's going to be something very unique. I've never seen that where you have three factions competing in kind of just like a battle royale and just no
Right.
independence whatsoever.
It sounds like some really interesting developments there in West New York, John. We actually had some. If we could shift back maybe to the political scene in Hoboken and even in Jersey City, candidate running for District 11 in New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill, was in Hoboken, and you reported of her presence in Jersey City, where Mayor Stephen Fulop introduced her to the audience.
Yeah, so we both had the pleasure of meeting Mrs. Sherrill the other night, earlier this week. Did two separate events, one for the Jersey City Democratic Organization, one for the Hoboken Democratic Committee. And, basically Mayor Fulop's message from what I heard at the South House was, it's time to flip the House. It's time to basically take Trump's legs out from under him, and it's
Right.
time to turn that district blue. I mean, as you astutely noted, that's been a GOP district since 1985, and
Wow.
Rodney Freeling has, and I believe you said has been in there since 1995.
That's right.
So
yes.
he's decided to hang it up.
Yeah.
He had some unpopular policies and votes and such, and just decided it was time. And now we have this battle between Miss Sherrill and Assemblyman Jay Weber, who Mayor Fulop said was is about as far to the right as you can be, and
Sure.
is basically just going to be a yes man for President Trump, which he feels would be bad for the country, as pretty much any Democrat would say.
Yes.
So that's what I observed there, and Miss Sherrill took her shots as well, as you saw, and we
Yes,
all
she did.
And the Weber campaign didn't take that lying down
They
either.
did respond, John. They did send a statement in response, interestingly saying that Miss Sherrill, when we asked for their response, characterizing Miss Sherrill as her far left cocoon,
Yeah.
which I thought was kind of interesting because that's what the Democratic Socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York, who beat longtime Democratic Queens-based Joseph Crowley in the Democratic primary about a month ago, where she's being criticized as being far left. But if you look at their two platforms, it seems Ms. Sherrill might be a little bit more down the middle. And so I thought it was interesting that Weber's campaign described her as far left, because if she's far left, then what's Ms. Ocasio-Cortez's platform then?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, again, another astute observation on your part. I mean, there's been a lot of back and forth between Sherrill and Weber this week. I mean, I don't know if you've been following some of the other statewide platforms, but, they've been talking about ICE and, a lot of other legislative issues. But the ICE one was interesting because Sherrill said that she would not support abolishing ICE, and a lot of people on the Democratic Party, especially on the national level, have said that's what they want. I personally don't think that's realistic, but you've heard that call as well.
Yes.
And it's interesting that she put her foot down and said, I don't support that. I mean, she's a former federal prosecutor, so maybe we should be less surprised. But that was something that caught my attention. Obviously, Mr. Weber is of the belief that ICE is doing a fantastic job,
Sure.
and they should probably, up their efforts.
Interesting.
So, that's unfortunately not a race that we're privy to on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, but that
Sure.
looks like it's going to be a good one. And you may have heard, actually, I believe it was only about 24 hours after we were down in South Hudson on Tuesday, that Vice President Mike Pence will be fundraising for Weber next week.
Oh my gosh, he's going to be in New Jersey?
He will be in New Jersey.
Oh, interesting. So he'll be in District 11 campaigning on behalf of Mr. Weber.
It's actually a big ticket fundraiser. I believe the lowest sponsorship was 1,000, and I believe the highest was 100,000.
Oh
So
my gosh, wow.
it is certainly not for a casual supporter.
So we will certainly be there to try to interview the Vice President, that is, John, and of course then we'll have to ask for an interview with the President himself. But
It's a little ambitious.
It might be, but we are. But I did ask, speaking about the Weber Sherrill campaign. I mean, I did ask Ms. Sherrill on camera to get her reaction to, does the election because you're hearing from, I guess, touching upon the national Democratic Party a little bit, right? Whereas you're seeing like many progressives within the Democratic Party saying like we need to be going hard after Trump and Pence and their messaging. We have to have our own strong messaging, and so. But then there are others who are saying, well, if these Democratic progressives go too far to the left, they may alienate the voters come November, especially in the midterms. That is. So we asked Michelle directly, does the election and not Democratic nominee wins of a candidate such as Miss Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who's a self-proclaimed Democratic socialist, will that ultimately hurt or help the Democrats in November? And that will be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I think in District 11, I mean, I think it's a real dogfight. I think it's anybody's ball game. I don't know exactly what Vice President Pence's impact will be on this race, but it'll certainly have some implications one way or the other.
Sure.
I don't know if that's the boost that Assemblyman Weber needs to get over the finish line, or if this actually ends up, because, like you said, it is a Republican district, but,
for a long time, yeah.
But I don't know, at the same time, that might backfire, because I don't know if people are that conservative over there. Again, that's not our strong suit, but time will tell, and
Sure.
we're getting down to crunch time. So that's going to be a fun one, of course.
Of course, and John, and being that you mentioned ICE, I mean, we right here within Hudson County has been, I think, might even be making some national headlines because, in fact, that we were it's a couple of weeks ago already, but where I was in attendance during the forum regarding the Union Drydock issue, but ICE somehow came up when Hudson County freeholder Anthony Romano, when he was there to speak about his opinion about what the city should do, what the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, giving his statement to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers about what should be done with the Union Drydock issue in Hoboken. As he approached the podium, someone in the audience shouted out, "Stop taking ICE money, Romano," and he looked visibly annoyed. We had video of that. It was actually shared picked up by other news outlets and shared to their audiences. That was quite a remarkable moment, it seemed.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly something different. Certainly not what I was expecting. It's clearly not what Freeholder Romano was expecting. To his credit, I mean, I think you'd agree with me that he handled it quite graciously.
Yes, I think he did. Yes.
But with that said, this freeholder meeting coming up in just 6 days, I mean, it looks like it's going to be a real melee. The Hoboken Democratic Committee is committed to showing up with a contingency, demanding that this contract be rescinded. Quite frankly, I don't believe that that's going to happen. I will. That's another one that I would be willing to put a few shekels on. I think this contract stays, at least for the short term.
Right.
I mean, we're talking big money. We've seen numbers reported 19, 22, 35 million. I mean, I think the number we got was 22, but
Wow.
it seems to change daily. I don't think anybody has actually been able to pinpoint it for whatever reason. But whatever the case may be, we know it's a lot of money. We're not talking a couple pennies here.
Of course.
So there was actually, and I'm glad you brought us back to that, because I would have been remiss if I didn't mention that at the end of the Hoboken Council meeting, this is way after 11 o'clock, I mean, I had already left, to be frank with everyone, but I know that Councilwoman at Large, Emily Jabbour, introduced a resolution for the council urging the freeholders to back out of the contract. Now, it was an extremely fast vote. I mean, less than a minute. I mean, she put it up there and everybody approved it, unanimous, 9-0.
Sure.
So then, following up on that, I know the freeholder chair, Anthony Veneri, said, this would make Hoboken's taxes go up millions of dollars. So if you are okay with that, then we're happy to rescind the contract. Obviously,
interesting.
Being a little sarcastic.
Huh.
But then, Councilwoman Jabbour responded that this is well beyond politics. This is well beyond budgeting. This is about human lives. So obviously, she feels very strongly about the issue.
Sure.
In one way, and the freeholder chair is looking at this as a business perspective, and I think they're both viable. Again, though, I just don't think that this far down the line, a program that's been around for 15 years, I mean, whether you like it or not, and whether you think it's right or you think it's wrong, I just don't see the freeholders caving to public pressure. Call it good, bad, or indifferent, but I think it stays. What do you think?
You may be right. I think that, it sounds like there'll be growing opposition to it. But it's interesting what you just said about what Freeholder Veneri had said, that, if they decide to rescind it, then that would mean, therefore, residents' taxes would go up. Now that's an interesting statement because I didn't realize that money would somehow offset people's paying higher taxes.
Well, the county budget, of course, always includes the county taxes too.
Sure, of course.
And that's separate from your municipal taxes, as I'm sure you already knew.
Yeah.
So that's what he's getting at.
I see. Well, again, personally, I think that I'd be interested. I'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how the opposition builds up and what their reaction will be.
Yeah. I mean, that'll certainly be must-see TV. I don't think
No
anyone
doubt.
would argue that.
No doubt.
And then, just a couple housekeeping issues. Tuesday's National Night Out, where all of our law enforcement communities come together, and they have lots of family-oriented fun, and that's going to be going on throughout the county. Face painting, balloons, food, music, dancing, clouds, balloon animals. Rock climbing walls.
great.
So you name it, there'll be something for mom and dad and the kids to do. So that's Tuesday, and that will be throughout the county, I believe, starting as early as 4 p.m., and that'll be going on till probably like 8 or 9 o'clock. So if you guys have some time, I mean, I'm sure that's something that a lot of the kids will be interested in, and I know a lot of the municipal governments have been working hard on for many weeks, in some cases even many months.
Sure.
And another issue that I wanted to just briefly throw out there is some of you, actually a lot of you I've seen noted that the Jersey City Housing Authority is going to be opening up their wait list for 1 week from August 6th to August 12th, and you could get that information on their website. We don't know how many people they're actually going to let on, but I mean, if it's going to be first come, first served, Jersey City residents will get the preference. So definitely check out that story if you're in Jersey City or the surrounding area and you or a family member has been looking for a place that looks like it's something that could be beneficial to you. So Mark, anything beyond that?
Well, I think that again next week, given everything that we discussed, there'll be no shortage of coverage for next week, and I think many members of our audience will be looking forward to the next installment of Hudson County Review Live.
All right, Mark, thanks for joining me today.
Of course, John.
Everyone else, thanks for, of course, tuning in again. We always appreciate it. We both hope you have a fantastic weekend.
Take care, everyone.